I hope you're doing well today. Happy St. Patrick's Day, happy spring, happy NCAA tournament, happy whatever it is you're celebrating, and of course happy festival season to all the spring festival organizers and evaluators. Today, for the most part, Katherine and I will be leading this webinar. Karen is on the line, and of course Emma is driving for us. So in the interest of all of the things we hope to do today, we're going to go ahead and get started. There are two goals for today's webinar. The first one is to review and discuss recent research of evaluation of public science events. Those are goals that we sent you a couple weeks ago, and I think Emma sent them again earlier this week. There is not an expectation that you will have read them. We're mostly going to summarize them today and then have some discussion around those. We're hoping for a lot of interactivity today. And the second goal for today is to preview the annual meeting, which will take place in June. More about that later on. So we want to get the interactivity going right away and start that with shout-outs. Typically, we come up with shout-outs with celebrations of either individuals involved in EvalFest or individual festivals. We thought today we would open up shout-outs and allow everyone the opportunity to either celebrate an accomplishment of your own, of your festival, or of another festival that you know about. So we're going to unmute you for a moment and give you...
Muted. Muted.
Any shout outs? Go for it.
I have one. This is Howard Rutherford from St. Petersburg Science Festival. Hi, everyone. I want to give a shout out to our colleagues up at the Jacksonville Science Festival. Included their festival, and we had several representatives from the St. Petersburg Science Festival, the Indian River Lagoon Science Festival, Saturday there. It was a wonderful time for us to meet face-to-face and experience firsthand their festival, which was our first time, and so they did a great job. I also want to say, as part of our Science Live grant with the Simons Foundation, Jacksonville Science Festival took first place during the Martin Luther King Parade. And they got a huge trophy that they're going to bring up to Boston this summer and share with us.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Howard.
Thank you for allowing us.
Yeah. Anyone else have a shout out?
If someone who, there's a lot of background, if someone who knows they're in a noisy area can leave, that would be great.
All right. Last call for shout outs. Well, Howard, that was a big one. We're going to take it. And Emma was also saying that of the festivals that have collected data so far, we've already have over 2,000 surveys collected. So we thought that was also a great shout out. I mean, we're just really at the beginning of the 2016 festival season. So so congratulations and pat on the back to all of those festivals. So we're going to just move on now, and let's see, we're going to move on. Emma, what do I do here? Let's see. All right. Great. we are going to move on and go ahead and get started with the article review. There are 2 articles that we would like to review. The first article is one that I read and reviewed, which is Why People Attend Science Festivals, Interests, Motivations, and Self-Reported Benefits of Public Engagement with Science. The interest I had in this article was really to share with the community that we, we're all doing surveys and are finding out important and interesting things about the attendees of our festivals through the attendee survey. This research study actually looked at survey data, but also then triangulated that data with a more in-depth survey after the festival and a focus group after the festival to look more deeply at what's happening at the festival. The festival in question here, oh, I'm sorry, we keep struggling with the screen. Let's see if I can get that moving again. Oops. Emma? Oh, there we go. And so let me just start with sort of the bottom line here, which is that for this research study, which concerns the Cambridge Science Festival, Cambridge, UK Science Festival, festival goers reported increased interest and curiosity about new areas of science as a result of attending the Cambridge Science Festival. That's probably not groundbreaking to any one of us, but I do think the methods that they used are worth considering. So, and that view of this research. And I'm sorry, I keep struggling here with getting the screen to advance.
I don't know what that means. If you like, I can search the web for.
Let's see here. Can you all see my screen? I'm going to thumbs up or thumbs down on that. Are you all seeing my screen?
Now we see the slide that says the bottom line.
Okay, good. I'm just not able to get it to advance. I'm wondering, Emma, can I make you the driver and see if that'll work? All right, here we go. Let's try that again. So the research questions for this study are: what are the patterns of visitor interest and reception at the Cambridge Science Festival? And what, if anything, about the festival experience is valued by the visiting publics? There's a little bit of background that I think is important to know as I delve into the research and the findings. A little bit about the Cambridge Science Festival. Again, the UK Cambridge British, the Cambridge Science Festival. This festival started in 1995. It is part of the UK's National Science and Engineering Week, which happens in March. In fact, this festival is going on right now. It's March 7th through 20th. The mission of the Science Festival states that it will engage the public in issues of science interest and concern. The concern piece was added in 2004, and that was that concern piece was added to be able to address issues related to science or science and society, and to have more critical discussion of those issues. So it was to extend beyond kind of the fun, celebratory nature, the finished nature of science sometimes that is presented in festivals, and to get more towards those science and society type issues. Like many of our own festivals, the events of this festival are primarily free, open to the public. There are specific activities for targeted audiences, whether that's lectures for adults or hands-on and interactive experiences for children and families. And over the course of about 2 weeks, they have 300 events. So that's a little bit of background about the Cambridge, UK Science Festival. The other piece of background information that I think is relevant to this research and important to discuss just for a moment is that the authors of this study really looked at different types of engagement with the public. They used a handbook that Irwin published in 2008 that looks at 3 different types of engagement, and they're pretty easy to remember the names: first order, second order, and third order engagement. First order is really about promoting interest, awareness, interest in careers on the part of children, and the interactions between scientists and the public are really about the scientists imparting information on the part of the public. So it's a one-way interaction primarily. The second order type of engagement is really about having a dialogue between the scientist and the public. There's a presumption that both the public and the scientist have something of value to share with the other, and have valuable knowledge to bring to those discussions. And it's much more of a dialogue as opposed to just an imparting of knowledge. And then third order dialogue takes second order dialogue to the next level and really engages the public and scientists in critical dialogue about how science can best serve society. So it's really getting at societal needs and integrating a larger discussion, putting science in the context of public values. So, those first, second, and third order types of engagement will come up again. The methods that these researchers used for this study was an on-site survey at as many events as possible during the festival. So again, this is a 2-week festival with about 300 events. They collected just under 1,000 surveys. These are not unlike our own attendee survey, very brief surveys that either a volunteer collected or there was a paper-based survey on a chair at a seated event like a lecture. They also then, from that group of on-site surveys, got their email addresses and sent out a web-based survey to any respondent to the paper-based on-site survey who was 16 years old or older. And from that, they received 73 surveys back. They sent those surveys 1 week after the festival ended, and then they got 73 responses. These were longer form, more qualitative sorts of responses that got at the motivation for attending the festival, what people liked and disliked about the festival, and what they gained or lost from the festival, from attending the festival and from their experience. And then finally, from the respondents to the web-based survey, they invited, they put an open call to those 73 individuals to attend a focus group to again delve even deeper into the festival experience. They had 13 people accept the invitation, and they held 2 focus groups with those 13 people. The focus groups took place 7 weeks after the festival concluded, and the focus groups were approximately 3 hours in length, and they were led by the researchers. So 3 hours was a surprise to me. That's a long length of time, but they got a lot of data from that, from the focus group in much more depth. Okay, findings. So I jumped right into web-based survey, but before I do that, let me just say that primarily the findings from the on-site survey, where they had the most respondents, 957 respondents, primarily those findings were that people learned more about science. They gained knowledge and they gained understanding. When we get to the web-based surveys, the main thrust of the data that were collected through those responses were that primarily what was gained was knowledge and understanding about science. So if you think about it in terms of those types of engagement, it was very much that first order engagement with science, where they were the attendees were learning from the scientists who were presenting at the festival events. The web-based survey also really those respondents ended up focusing mostly on lectures and hands-on events in terms of what they liked the most. So they really liked that they could have a personal interaction with a scientist, that there were, again, activities for families or children that were appropriate to them. Those are what primarily came out of liking or positive features of the Science Festival by the respondents from the web-based survey. What also came back in terms of unsuccessful aspects out of this survey was that the respondents wanted more opportunities to see scientists engage in discussion or debate with each other, or to discuss more the process of science, not just the findings or the results of the science or the outcomes of the science, but how the science happened. So, so they were disappointed that things maybe within a lecture ended at a question and answer standpoint and didn't really have scientists engaging with one another. And so in the way the researchers of this study describe it, people wanted more first-order information about the process of science. So again, not just the findings, but the process of science itself. And then in terms of the web-based survey, the researchers kind of left themselves with this question of science festivals and whether in our desire to celebrate science, we downplay the nature of scientific research while focusing more on the celebration aspect. So we can discuss that a little more in just a minute, but they did kind of leave themselves reflecting on that process of science piece. Then for the focus groups, the findings of these were the 13 people who attended focus groups for 3 hours each. They found that attendees said that the science festival, the public event of the festival, makes a strong and memorable impression on people, and is even a stronger approach to public engagement with science than a science broadcast. That, you know, because of the time-limited nature of a science festival, there's buzz around it. There's also, unlike a science broadcast, an opportunity to interact with current research and delve deeper into a topic, to actually get to see and have a conversation with the people who are doing the research. And they also found in the focus group that there really were no negative comments about first order engagement, that even if an attendee to a festival only engaged on that understanding about science piece, that was fine, and people actually really appreciated those opportunities to have first order engagement. And that there are opportunities within a particular science festival to have higher order, those second and third order engagements at a micro level. That may happen, you know, perhaps within an expo. There may be a member of the public and a scientist who get to have a second order engagement type of conversation where there's a lot of give and take and dialogue. So those opportunities do exist, but they're more in pockets within a festival than the goal of the festival itself. The authors proposed at the conclusion of this paper that there be a study about investigating whether people are worse off in their understanding of science after attending a festival than having not attended, than before attending the festival. And this gets back to that process of science piece. They, I believe they were left with this idea based on their data that that the process of science gets lost, and that people are craving that, and that there is a danger with science festivals of kind of sanitizing the process, not showing the hours of painstaking labor that go into a scientific study, or kind of the grueling grunt work that is also science. That kind of what is real science and scientific discovery gets sanitized in this desire to show results, to show celebration, to show important findings, and that they would like to see a study to that effect. And they also proposed a more long-term look at science festivals within what we can call, you know, an ecosystem approach to science and science engagement. They said, you know, it is clear from studies and surveys of the public that the public supports science. We just really still don't know why. And if we could look at events like science festivals in the context of other types of science engagement, including other informal engagement techniques like museums and science centers, we may better understand what the relationship is between science and society, and why people do end up, in general, in their society supporting science. The authors of this study said there were some weaknesses to their study as they saw it. One was that for the on-site surveys, they only collected those at one point in time, and that was after the event. They would like to collect and see, it would be a stronger study next time if they collected pre and post data and can do those comparisons to see a change in attitude or response at the particular events where the data were collected. And also, you know, this question of self-selection bias, not only people self-select to go to a festival, but then people in their study self-selected to respond to a web-based questionnaire, and then also self-selected to attend a focus group. And so we have to wonder how those data might compare to others who didn't opt in automatically. And so, so that is a quick breeze through that paper. My question for you is, if you were going to implement a longitudinal study, what kinds of questions would you want to ask festival attendees and why? And Emma, if you can open it up at this point, that would be great. Anyone? You were going to...
Okay, most people have been unmuted. Sorry about that, it takes a little bit, but everyone's unmuted now.
Richard, it looks like you you might have something to add here.
Yes, Richard
Hi.
Gelderman from Sky Sci Fest in Kentucky. I do appreciate the danger of sanitizing the process of science, and that the doing of science seems that the maker fairs I've been to present in the science festivals. Science festivals tend to wrap things up in prettier packages. Maker fairs seem to show blood, sweat, and drops of solder. So just a comment.
Great, thank you. Any other? And so, Richard, would you, if you were going to do a longitudinal study, would you somehow wrap that process of science piece into it?
Sorry, yes, that was my point. Is my idea for a longitudinal study would be to compare places that were more like maker fairs, more like the doing of stuff, with festivals that focused more on the presenting of stuff. And I'd want to see the differences in the audience and the takeaways, how people felt when they left, what brought them there in the first place, and what they took away when they left. And I'd like to see that comparison.
Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts about longitudinal studies?
Denise, this is Howard again. From
Hey,
the
Howard.
St. Festival. Hi. Just to dovetail on what Richard just mentioned, you know, we actually had both of those experiences under the Science Festival umbrella. You know, and I know Kaya had presented somewhat of a secret shopper process that we had in place about 2 or 3 years ago. Last time, which I wasn't able to attend, but I'm wondering if we could follow families around and make some observations on how they interact with the makerspace versus how they interact with the traditional presenting or hands-on or sanitizing science experiences. Or sanitized science experiences, excuse me. I love that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So thank you, Howard and Richard. In the interest of time, I'm going to kind of move us along, if I can get us back to full screen here. Oops. Right. There we go.
I'm not control Denise. There we go.
And I think I'm going to skip this question just because I looked at the time, but really one of the things that I think is also interesting for us to think about related to our festivals is that idea of second and third order engagement, and what, if anything, we do within our own festivals that fosters that dialogue, and even dialogue with the intent to think about the role of science in society. So maybe that's something we can reflect on individually and discuss over lunch at the annual meeting. But at this point, I think we should hand things over to Katherine. Katherine, I'm going to make you a driver if you want me to. Or
no. I
okay.
think if you
Okay.
I can.
I'll just advance.
Drive.
Okay. I was going to say I can just okay. Go. Thank you. Thanks, Mom.
So.
Okay. So I'm going to give a brief summary of a paper titled "Does Attending a Large Science Event Enthuse Young People About Science Careers?" And this article was written by Sam Illingworth, Emma Lewis, and Carl Percival, and was published in 2015 in the Journal of Science. So the takeaway from this paper is that both students and teachers who attended a Science Expo event, they rated the event very, very highly. They were enthusiastic about the event, but less than half of the students said they were more likely to pursue a career in science as a result of the event. And so the authors suggest that if that's a desired outcome for events like these, that the organizers include more explicit discussion of careers and career paths at these events. So that's the big overview, and now let's go into a little more detail on the event and on the findings. So next slide. This was an event at the University of Manchester. It was part of British Science Week. The University of Manchester has been organizing a science festival since 2010. This particular event had 900 students, ages 11 to 14, attending, and there were 3 different parts of what I'm imagining was like a full day event. There was a lecture by a university faculty member, there was a workshop for the students, and then there was a hands-on expo where there were 30 different interactive science experiments that were led by researchers and students from the university. And the paper really focused on that hands-on expo part of the day. So at the expo, they used an on-site survey. It was short. Again, it was had some similarities to our attendee surveys. There were Likert scale questions and open-ended questions. And of the 900 student attendees, they were able to get 609 surveys completed, and they had 61 teachers complete the survey as well. Before we move on, just to provide a bit more context, their expectations and hope for this event were that the event would, 1, enthuse students about science. So the questions that they asked were around these expectations. So enthuse students about science. 2, that the opportunity to interact with science researchers and university students would encourage the students, the young students, the 11 to 14-year-olds, to pursue an active interest in a science career. And 3, that the young students would view the scientists as a useful resource for career information. So those were their expectations and desires. Next slide. Their analysis of the surveys were pretty straightforward and simplistic. They looked at the percentage of respondents who agreed and strongly agreed on the questions, and then for the open-ended questions, they put all the responses into a word cloud. And what did they find? they found, these are what the students told them, and again, these are students who agreed or strongly agreed with the survey question. And I've shortened the language some just to make it, just for the ease of us reading it. So 97% of the students thought the science fair was interesting. 96% said they found out something new about science. 82% learned about different science and engineering courses at the university. 78% had the opportunity to speak to a student or a researcher about his or her work. And 68% of the students said that their perceptions of scientists changed as a result of attending the event. And then finally, the finding that the authors of this paper really focused on is this last one, that 46% of the students said they were more likely to pursue a career in science as a result of attending the event. The next slide shows the word cloud for one of their open-ended questions. This question was, has today changed what you think about who scientists are? How? You can see here that yes was one of the most common responses, and so this corroborates the Likert scale question, where 68% of the students agreed or strongly agreed that their perceptions of scientists had changed. I think some of the other words that pop out to me on this word cloud, other than obviously scientists and science, that aren't really giving us that much indication of what the answers were. I also noted that different and interesting people. So those things were common replies from the students. Now for the teachers, you can see here that they rated the event very highly. So 100% felt the event was either good or excellent. So all of them gave it a very positive rating. 93% felt the event was valuable for their students, and 92% thought the event will increase their students' interest in studying science. You can see my paper is a lot shorter, or at least my summary is a lot shorter than Denise's. So the conclusion of the authors is that well, clearly the event was a success in a lot of ways. It was highly regarded, it excited the students and enthused the students. The teachers felt it was a very strong event, but it did not educate and enthuse the students about scientific careers. And again here, they're focusing on this 46% of the students. 46% of the students said it did impact, that they are more likely to consider a scientific career as a result of the event. They also shared that with the open-ended responses, there were only 3 responses that specifically mentioned careers and learning more about careers. Sorry, same slide still, yeah, at the event. So the authors suggest, as I mentioned at the outset, that in designing events like this, if we are seeking to encourage students to pursue science careers, that we make this emphasis much more explicit. And some of their suggestions for ways to do that are to have the researchers discuss their career paths, discuss what they like about their job, discuss the benefits of their positions and so forth. And also to prepare materials that the teachers could use either before the event, after the event, to really help students learn more about scientific careers. I had a couple questions just about that. I questioned their interpretations of this, and that in a number of different ways, and I'm going to look forward to hearing what you all think. But the first way is that I feel like they could have asked a lot more questions about. No, stay on that slide. Sorry, then we'll get to that. I feel like they could have asked more questions about careers. If their goal for this event was that students would learn more and become more enthusiastic about scientific careers, I found it puzzling that they only had one question that specifically probed about careers, and that question was that students were more likely to pursue a career. So it seems like they might have also wanted to ask questions like, at this event I learned more about science careers. At this event I talked with someone about his or her career. Just to give them a better understanding of the landscape of what was going on during the day. Now, next slide. But my bigger question, it comes out at, well, there really are two. And so the first one is it realistic to expect that a significant number of students will say they are more likely to pursue a career in science as a result of an event like this? So I think now we can open it up for comments, please.
But if the modifications are minor, my computer's hooked up again. If the modifications are minor, I'm not enthusiastic.
Betsy, it looks like you have something to say.
Yes. Did they report a baseline level of how many students were interested in scientific careers before the festival? And quite frankly, when you said that there were 46% that said they were interested as a result of the festival, I was quite impressed. I thought that was a high number.
Yeah. I'm not sure who on the line has a lot of background noise, but if you know it's you, can you mute your line? Because it was very hard to hear. We may have to go to hand raising. Can you say that again?
Okay. Yes. Did they report a baseline number of students or percentage of students that were interested in careers in science prior to the festival? And my immediate response when you said that they found that 46% said they were interested because of the festival, my reaction was that was a very large number, not a small number. So I was surprised at the conclusion that it didn't increase interest.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Emma, for unmuting me. And thanks for that comment. They did not do a baseline level of interest, and I think that would be a great place to start, right? And I'm not sure if you would just do that as a pre when the students arrived and then ask them to do a post as they were leaving. But overall, I agree with you. I thought that you could make the opposite argument of theirs, which is that, wow, we did this one time, one day, or half day. It doesn't actually say how long the event was. And 46% of the students now say that they are, strongly considering pursuing a career in science. So I had that same response. I think when you think about 11 to 14-year-olds, they have a lot of interests, which is exciting, right? And I guess I questioned where it seemed like the authors wanted everyone to leave this event thinking that they would be in a science career, and that actually seems limiting to students in a way, right? We want them to be excited about science, we want them to have these experiences, we want them to know about these opportunities, but would we really want every student who attended to say they were going to be a scientist or in a science career? Other thoughts to whether this is actually a low response or a realistic expectation? Maybe raise your hand instead of opening it up because of the background noise. Or actually, maybe in the interest of time, let's move on to the next question in the next slide. So If you were gathering information on the impact of an event like this, and maybe thinking, you could think broadly or think specifically about this career question, what questions would you ask and what methods would you use? And so we already had one suggestion was that they have a baseline record of students' interest in science careers. Other ideas?
This is John Poss from Colorado Springs Science Festival. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we did a related event. It wasn't our standard, but it was specifically for girls in middle school, and so we did a one-day like mini science festival. It's 300 girls, so I think it was significant. And we indeed did ask before and after questions specifically on careers, but I think if careers is a goal, then you do ask certain questions that have to do with do you feel as a result of this, I'll just call it an event, that you're better prepared to in your high school career? Do you feel better prepared potentially in your upcoming college career? The other thing we did, because careers are extremely important, we provided a pretty significant roundtable with female role models. In this case, it was for girls, female role models in science that would talk to the girls. It was kind of a random sort of selection, and we got a significant difference because that was one of our goals of talking about careers between the before and after.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Katherine, this is Karen. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Karen.
One of the things I like about both of these studies and the questions that you guys are posing to the group is that it sort of challenges us to think about, are we in the business of trying to increase content knowledge? Is that what festivals are all about? Are we in the business of increasing career interest or people who are going to, enter the STEM pipeline? Is that what we're all about? And then how do we meaningfully measure impact in relation to that? And one of the nice things I think about this community is that people's answers to those questions are going to be a little bit different. And I think there's some fantastic opportunity there, both to drill down into the things that you care about the most as part of your own festival, but also to learn from what others are doing and what they're doing well and what they're learning. And the opportunity for that is going to continue to expand as we start to move into the final 3 years of this project, where we have different working groups focusing on different topics. And so I appreciate both of these studies as a jumping off place to start thinking about what we do really care about and what we do really want to measure and how we want to go about doing that.
Thanks, Karen. I think something.
I know that this particular event took place on a college campus. Mm-hmm. And so, in my mind, and I don't know if this has been substantiated somewhere, but people have barriers that they put up because they're either unfamiliar with the space or other things, versus having a festival in a third place where nobody owns that place. It's a park. People are already used to going there for other types of festivals in their community. This is the home of the professors and the researchers, and it just, for me, it doesn't put everyone on equal footing. Mm-hmm. And so I want to question how that played into the results that came out of this. And we grappled with that as well, because we host part on the university campus and part in the city park, part on the streets. So we're a hybrid, but if I had to do all over again, I would consider a third place to host our festival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, and it certainly was not something that was discussed in this paper.
Right.
And I mean, I guess in this case, because they were there with their teachers, I mean, it sounds like it was a field trip day of some kind. So they weren't. They also, good or bad, they weren't opting in necessarily, right? They were as part of their school day, which has benefits and drawbacks, I guess. We should probably make sure we have enough time to discuss our gathering, so I think we can move on. But thank you all, and we look forward to continuing these discussions.
Great. So Emma, if you'll keep driving, I'll move us forward discussion-wise with the annual meeting. And again, thank you everyone for your thoughts about those 2 research articles. Those 2 were freely available, so we felt comfortable actually sending them out to you. If you come across research that is relevant to this community, whether it's about methods or particular audiences or other types of public science events perhaps that are contained within a science festival, please let us know. We would like to make sure that you know, we all have an opportunity to kind of think about kind of the larger informal science and public science event research that's going on out there. Now, getting on to the annual meeting, it's coming up. In fact, I was this morning when I was thinking about it, I was like, you know, 3 months from now, our annual meeting will be over. It will be history. So, so Katherine and Karen and Emma and I have really been ramping up our organizing for the annual meeting. As you know, the annual meeting will take place on Wednesday, June 15th and Thursday, June 16th in Boston. These are the 2 days directly following the IPSEC meeting for those of you who attend that meeting or plan to attend that meeting. And just to give you a sense of our thinking in terms of the calendar and how the meeting the EvalFest meeting will unfold. We are not going to have an activity on Tuesday, June 14th. So if you are at IPSEC, you're probably exhausted by the time that's over. Take that evening to rest up or go sightsee or do whatever it is that you'd like to do to relax and get ready for a full day on Wednesday, June 15th. Also, if you're flying in that night, you can fly in the evening and not worry that you're missing something. So we will not have an organized activity on the 14th. We will start at 9 a.m. on June 15th and go in our meeting space, which we'll talk about in a moment, at 4 p.m. Then we're going to have to take a little break, clean up from the meeting space, and then we will have a dinner meeting as a group on Wednesday, June 15th, not unlike the gallery walk we did when we were here in North Carolina last January. There will be a meeting activity at dinner. And then Thursday we'll again start at 9 in the morning. We're going to conclude the meeting at 2:30, which will allow the vast majority of us to then leave for the airport and get back home on Thursday evening. So that is our plan for the calendar for the annual meeting. Emma, can you go ahead and advance the slide? Thanks. Okay, so the meeting will be in Boston, in Cambridge. This calendar shows a tiny swath of Cambridge. The IPSEC meeting, if you are attending that, is this middle star. That is on the MIT campus at the MIT Media Lab. It is right off the Kendall Square T station, and we're going to send you a one-pager with all of this information in the next couple of days. So, including the map, but just to give you a sense of where it would be, MIT is the place for the IPSEC meeting. The EvalFest meeting is going to be taking taking place at the star that Emma's now pointing to. It's called the Microsoft Nerd Center, the Microsoft New England Research and Development Center. And then we have arranged for a hotel for EvalFesters that is about a 20-minute walk away. It's right along the Charles River. It's a very nice walk. And the hotel is the Hyatt. We have reserved a block of rooms for EvalFest for Tuesday evening, June 14th, and Wednesday, June 15th. If you stay at that hotel, which we hope you will, those 2 evenings will automatically be billed to us, to the grant, so you won't have to pay out of pocket. We're trying to prevent the issues that arose with reimbursements last year out of UNC Chapel Hill. So we just will do a direct bill for those 2 evenings. You will also have the option, if you're coming to IPSEC or want to extend your stay in Boston, to do that and to book your room for a longer period of time. It's just that we will be paying for those 2 evenings, June 14th and 15th, directly. Additionally, we are setting up airfare so that will be directly billed to UNC Chapel Hill for the grant, and you won't have to pay out of pocket for that. So that's the reason we requested the W-9, that's so we can get things squared away with a travel agent to be able to take your phone call, book your flight at the times that work for you, whether that's to get there in time for IPSEC or just get there in time for EvalFest, and then back home. But we'll be sending a travel agent phone number details as well as the link to book your hotel room in the next few days. If you are not flying or you live locally or you are flying, you will have incidental expenses. So parking, transportation, meals that we are not covering as part of the official meeting, those will be on a reimbursement basis this time, so you will need to save receipts, but again, we're going to send out additional information about that in the next few days. So Emma, we can move on. Okay, in terms of the agenda for the I guess 1 3/4 days that we're together, our goals are that everyone attends, and by everyone that we mean a festival coordinator or director and a festival evaluator from each festival. So we want 2 people from each festival, everyone to be there, and that everyone feels like the time we spend together is useful and valuable. We also think that a successful meeting means that we provide meaningful professional development for the community in 3 particular areas that just keep coming up and are critical to our work. One is data analysis. And we've got the web tools now and all the iPad data going, QuickTap data going into our dashboards. But what do we do with that? Then, of course, reporting is also critical to our work. And then other research related issues such as sampling and how do we know when, how can we say with any degree of certainty or confidence that the data we have are representative, and other questions arising from sampling. So we're going to bring in a combination of EvalFest advisory board members and other experts to help us with those topics. And then the third piece that we think if we can leave with, we will feel like the meeting was successful, is developing that plan for the last 3 years of the EvalFest grant, the EvalFest project, and that is that innovative methods piece. This is where we get to, in many ways, conduct our own research about measuring festival impact, where we can experiment with new ways, new methods of evaluation that attend to questions that we are all interested in our own festivals. Our sense right now is that we will develop, and Karen alluded to this, some working groups around particular methods that perhaps hopefully one or more of our festivals are interested in exploring, and use a working group method around that. But there are lots of different ways that set up this innovative methods piece, and we keep going back and forth about it. So if you are particularly interested, if maybe you signed up for EvalFest because you really wanted to get to this 3rd through 5th year innovative methods piece, you know, there are some mini grant funds available to festivals for this kind of experimentation and testing. If that is something that is of particular interest to you, I would love to hear from you in the next week or so. We are going to really be putting a finer point on the process for the innovative method mini grant piece. So shoot me an email or put something in the chat box here on this webinar, and let me know that you're interested, because I want to talk with you and try to get a small group together to help us work through exactly how this piece might work. Okay, Emma?
Can I just add, Denise, that that's if you're interested in giving us feedback on how to organize this. It doesn't preclude you from being a part. If you don't have to participate in the next couple of weeks in these discussions to ultimately participate.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's just if you are interested in helping us think through how this piece might unfold. Thank you. And then lastly, just a few other announcements. We've got 2 webinars before our annual meeting. The next one is on Thursday, April 21st. We're going to do report outs from the fall festivals. We will be in touch in the next few days with this. We will do these in affinity groups. We've got a template where we just want each of the fall festivals to tell us about their attendee data and what they learned. And then in May, Savita Kusted, who is an advisory board member for EvalFest, and many of you may have met her through Science Festival Alliance or at IPSEC, she's going to present European Approaches to Festival Evaluation on May 26th. That is not the 3rd Thursday of the month. It's 1 week later, but that was the best date for her. The date before that was her own festival and she couldn't attend. And then Emma, you wanted to give us some additional information about training videos and event characteristics.
Yes. I'm just making sure I'm not muted. So I have created a short series of training videos, and we'll be creating more with Karen over the next couple of weeks in order to help everybody learn how to, use the iPads, work on different types of evaluation. We're going to be creating videos about training field researchers, how to use I have all these things written down, how to use innovative methods, tutorials for infographics, analysis, how to use our dashboard, all of those different things coming forward. I'm going to be posting the first 3 for you to enjoy on YouTube and on our toolkits today and tomorrow. So those will be up, and I will send out an email letting you know that you can watch those. And then as we create more and set them up, then I will send out additional information about those. And for our event characteristics, you will remember that we did this last year, trying to figure out just the characteristics of every event that you collected data at your festival. It's our goal to be sending these out about 2 weeks after your festival ends. So I'm already behind on our first festivals of the season. Sorry about that. You'll be receiving that very soon. And just be on the lookout for those as we move forward. This will help us to categorize our events both in the dashboard and also moving forward throughout EvalFest. So please keep an eye out for that, and I will be in touch with you and bothering you a lot if you do not respond quickly.
Great. Thank you. I know we're a little over time, so we're going to hang up shortly. I've got the questions log here. We'll be responding to questions if you put a question in the question field here on the GoToMeeting viewer for attending today, and we will be in touch soon. Have a great afternoon. Bye.